I want to welcome those of you who are participating with us today for our Assessment Directors meeting for December. Just a reminder, those of you who are participating through WebEx, to please mute your microphone. It's pretty disruptive to the whole group if individuals don't do that. We've got some important information to review today, and hopefully we'll be able to answer any questions that might be out there in the field. I want to start out with, I'm going to disclose some self-disclosure. One of my guilty pleasures in life is sports and sports radio. A lot of people will, I'll have Emily advance we're having some technical difficulties on our end too. I'll have her first slide. And anyway, I was talking about one of my guilty pleasures is sports. And John Wooden is regarded as arguably the best basketball coach. A lot of people think one of the best leaders ever to be involved in sports. And this is one of his quotes that I think relates to our business of assessment. One of the things that he said is, "There were many games that gave me as much pleasure as any of the 10 national championship games I won, simply because we prepared fully and played near our highest level of ability." And it's that last part of this quote that I think relates to what we do. In order for us to know whether we're playing to our highest level of ability, or whether we're talking about students or teachers or school admins or school systems, assessment of various kinds plays a role in that. And it's an important role. In sports, the assessment is the game, and there's a score, and it's clear whether the team won or not. And then individuals have individual performances that are measured as part of that. I think as we begin our meeting today, that would be my thought to start with. Emily, can you advance the next slide, please? The other thing I want to do is, over the course of the time I've been here, I get various emails and questions. And so I've created a Kahoot quiz. I don't know how many of you have played that before. I'd like to do this professionally and also with my children at home. Kahoot is a fun and engaging activity. We'll use this as a review of things that you probably have heard before, but you may have forgotten. So those of you who are in the field or here in the room, you'll go ahead and go to kahoot.it and put in a nickname. We'll put up here our Kahoot slide, and you'll get a code that you'll use to enter to join our Kahoot. Emily, can you open the Kahoot browser? And go ahead and select Classic. And okay, so there's the pin. So again, if you go to kahoot.it, you can do this on a mobile device or on a computer, and enter that code. You can put in a nickname, or if you don't mind us knowing who you are, that's okay as well. This game will give you points for correct answers, and it also will give you points for how quickly you respond to the answer, assuming you get it correct. We'll give everybody a few minutes, and then we'll begin this quiz. Our purpose of it being to review some things that you probably already know about our assessment accountability world that may have forgotten. I don't want any of the assessment team to join this. It would be unfair. I ran through this with them previously to make sure that we had all the right answers. And another reminder, if you'll look at your screen, your mic, it's probably found in the top toolbar. Emily, is that correct? Right next to your name. So if you look on your screen right next to your name, there'll be a microphone. Is that correct? You'll click on that, and it'll show a mute or a bar through it when it's muted. So those of you who are participating online, please look at that and make sure that your device is muted. And we've got a little bit of a delay because of muted devices. Nickname, that's awesome. Someone's nickname is nickname. Okay. As soon as Emily is done with the muting. Okay, let's go ahead and begin our Kahoot. So Emily, if you'll push that start button. I'll read the question as well. And then you'll select what you believe is the correct answer. We're going to start with a softball here. Which character is most likely to be seen during the Christmas season? This is a practice question as we get ready for the game. You'll select the color associated with the correct answer. I've given 20 seconds to respond, but if everybody gets their response in before that time, we'll advance to the next question before the 20 seconds expires. All right. Cupid could be found. It is a popular time for engagement. I think Christmas is, right? So I can see the rationale for why someone would select that. All right, now we're going to get into some content. Emily, we go to the next button and we'll see who our leaders are. Double D is in the front right now. Go ahead and hit next. USB has directed students to take the writing subtest during this year's statewide ACT admin. True or false? And this is information you probably know. Might be a few of you out here who have forgotten this, though. Awesome, that is correct. 12 of you got that right. This year, there will be an administration of the writing subtest for ACT, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later this morning. Okay, next. Double D is still in the front. Right, go on. In order to meet FERPA requirements, LEA should do which of the following during the ACT admin? Awesome, the majority of you got that one correct as well. So remember, there are two questions that have been identified as violations to state FERPA. One has to do with family income, and the other one has to do with religious affiliation. Even though those questions have been on the survey for a number of years, because we're aware of that problem, we have to take action. And this year, the action will be you'll have supplemental instructions that will direct the students not to complete those two questions. That also will be available for those of you who are delivering it online. The digital instructions, if I remember correctly, will also include that. So, okay, let's go on. Wow, Double D is hanging on to the lead. Let's go next. The UTREX data collectors are scheduled to be down during which December time period? This comes from our last assessment directors meeting. There were some questions about this. And so we worked with data and statistics, and I got the answer. We've talked about it a little bit or communicated a little bit over the last month, but I don't think everyone's aware of this. Awesome. The majority of you got this right. None. The collectors will remain open through December. There's been talk about scheduling an outage, and that was not scheduled to happen. So we anticipate they'll be open the whole month. Okay, next. Adam has moved up. Okay, let's go on. I'm kind of rooting for Grinch. First time enrolled in the USEL students before April 15th are required to take which of these assessments? This was in the slides that we covered last month. There was some discussion about this at the Utah Association of Assessment Directors monthly meeting. And this is a change from previous years. Awesome. Most of you got that right. And Adam is hanging on to the lead. The reason for that change has to do with our ESSA plan and our need to create a growth score for our EL students, even those who've enrolled first time. So those scores don't count for achievement or in the accountability of their first year enrolled, but we're getting that as a baseline so that the second year we can calculate a growth score for those students. Okay, let's go next. In 2018-2019, statewide assessment for grades 3-8 will use the Utah Item Bank, which would mean the data is comparable to prior years. How are we doing on the mute? Good? Awesome. Thank you for everyone for muting your mics. True. We will be using the same items that have been developed over the last 5 years for our new assessment delivery system, which is yet to be named. So I call it our statewide assessment system right now. As we get to a place where we have it rebranded, we'll certainly share that information and ask for your help in communicating that. But the data that we'll collect from that next year will still be comparable to prior year's data. And that's important for our teachers and principals to understand. Okay, next. Grinch, hey, I was rooting for him or her, and they moved up into the lead. Okay, next. Oh, Adam. The new grades 3-8 statewide assessment system will include which of the following types of assessments? Awesome, 100%. That's our first question where we've got 100%. This is important to know as well because many of these types of assessments are the ones that are most valued by your instructional staff. So please make sure that information is shared. The names of these might be changed slightly with the new vendor, but remember, we'll provide all of these tools with the current contract that we're developing. Okay, next. Double D is bumped up to the top. Awesome. Okay, next. Beginning in 2018-19, writing will only be administered for which of the statewide assessments? Next year, which assessments include writing? Okay, so we've got a little bit more of a range on responses there. The grades 5, 8, and ACT are correct. So if you'll remember, we've been moving towards only testing 5th and 8th grade writing for a couple of years now. And that will go into play not this spring, but the following spring. And then the ACT writing subtest, that was added this past summer. Our state board brought that into play. And so this spring will be the first time we'll include that, and that also will be applicable next school year as well. Okay, let's go on. Grinch is back up there. Which of the following can proctor the KEEP assessment in the spring of 2018? The question I've received from several assessment directors. I thought it'd be important just to make sure we're all on the same page here. Licensed educators, that is correct. The way that the assessment is written, there's an expectation that only licensed educators will proctor it. We'll talk more about that later this morning. Heather will. When we get to those slides, it'll be important to pay particular attention to the proctoring requirements. I know that's an issue that many of your schools are starting to think about already. So, okay, next. Grinch is back up. Okay. The new grades 3-8 statewide assessment system will be computer adaptive. True or false? Awesome, 100%. That is true, and that's actually written into statute that that test is computer adaptive. And will continue to be so. Okay, next. Grinch is opening up a little bit of a lead. Rudolph's on the board now too, though. The SAGE system training, scheduled for January 11th, will provide which of the following? Awesome. Almost 100%. All of the above. Okay, next. All right, leaderboard's pretty stable. Go on. Schmoop is, I'm going to confess this one's a little tricky. It also will tell you another one of my guilty pleasures. It is an online ACT prep tool. That is correct. It also was a pet name Jerry Seinfeld gave one of his girlfriends. Smoopy, actually, was the name he gave her. So this is important, though. It is important that our schools know that the Schmoop tool is available to them. There's a fairly significant cost that's applied to that our state uses to pay for that. And we're hopeful that all students who want to take advantage of that, whether in a structured setting in the school or independently in their home, know that information. Okay. Go on. No change because everyone missed it. The deadline for applying for ACT accommodations is January 12th. That is correct. We'll have, again, some more detailed information on that later this morning. Go on. Okay. Which student ACT score currently counts in the school accountability measure? This question is mainly I want to get an idea of what the perception is in the field about this question. Okay, so we've got quite a range here, and again, this question was thrown in for our staff to kind of get an idea of what the perception is. We actually, right now, the highest ACT composite for the graduating cohort is what's used in the school accountability. Not too long ago, we used to look at the sub-scores and how many students were getting sub-scores. Am I getting corrected here? Uh-huh. Where the graduation what? Cohort. Okay. Be the highest. Oh, okay. So I've got some clarification. It was either if their 11th grade test that they took was the highest, or or most recent test that is reported in the graduating cohort. One of the reasons we ask this question, we'll have more conversation about this at a future time, either digitally or face-to-face, is would it be more equitable to just use the 11th grade ACT composite for accountability? So we'll have more discussion about that in the future. I think that was the last question. Emily, will you verify that? And the Grinch, whoever you are, Grinch, congratulations. Crump and WB also performed very well. Rudolph was really close to getting on the leaderboard as well. So Emily, if you can take us back to the PowerPoint. Thank you for humoring me, and hopefully that added some clarity on some of those issues. The slide right below that. Okay, Emily, I apologize. I've got an animation on each bullet here. So general updates. Our Questar contract negotiations, again, that's our new 3rd through 8th grade vendor for computer adaptive tests. We're in our final stages. It's possible we'll submit and finalize that in time for the January board meeting. There aren't any unexpected issues that have come up during that process. The 910 assessment RFP, that closes January 15th. It's open right now. The question window for vendors through SciQuest ended yesterday afternoon. We've had lots of interaction with potential vendors. It's important maybe for assessment directors to know the way that RFP was written is to be as inclusive as possible. So we have vendors that have off-the-shelf products that can submit for an RFP and also custom developed assessments. The committee for that group has been established. It includes an assessment director, a superintendent, high school teacher, some parents, board member, and a couple of staff members from this building. And by February 7th, if things go as scheduled, we'll know who the vendor is for that product so that we can get moving on implementation. Okay. The alternate assessment, there's been some confusion about this, mainly because we've created it. Originally, the alternate assessment was included in the 3rd through 8th grade RFP. And as we started in contract negotiations for that, we also included the alternate assessment in our 910 RFP originally and released it with that. As we looked at the financial consequences of doing that, the decision was made to pull it out of the scope of work for 3.8 and also for the 910 RFP. We have access to the DLM through the year 2020, which means we don't have a pressure point there. There are some cost changes related to the DLM, but it's our expectation to continue to use that and eventually go to a RFP for a statewide grades 3 through 11 alternate assessment and have that process completed in time to replace the DLM when it expires. Okay. AR has made some adjustments to scoring. The last time we met together, we talked about consequences if you didn't administer, if you're in your 9th and 10th grade, if you didn't administer the writing subtest or reading subtest in the same window, the fall and spring. There was some concerns, and we've negotiated again with AIR, and we'll have some more information about that here shortly. The APAC appointments were made during the December board meeting. That's the advisory committee. It's to help with assessment and accountability. That group will be meeting, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. But that appointments have been made. The secretary for the board will be sending out those announcements to the people who are on the list of potential candidates, and then we'll be communicating with them about our next meeting shortly. Okay, Emily? Legislator Briscoe is likely to run a bill that will address opt-outs. He has a representative who's come in and met with me over the last 2 weeks. There's been communication and his desire to address the problem that he's aware of at the legislative level. We need that to be addressed at the legislative level. Either the changes on it allowing statewide assessment scores to be included in grades, that's a legislative issue that needs to be addressed, or the opt-out. So we're hopeful that he'll be able to make progress in that way. The last time we met, that was identified as one of the assessment directors, one of their greatest concerns. Okay, so let's go through these. Go ahead and there's 4 bullets here, I believe, Emily, if you just put them all up. So as we've communicated with AIR about the challenges with schools who've administered part of the ELA 9/10 score, either the reading or writing, in the fall window, and the challenges that has with getting an overall score and school accountability, these are the options that they came back with. Student takes writing prior to the change. They'll be able to take reading in the spring and get an overall score. So if I take writing already, some schools have already done that. I take reading in the spring, I'll get an overall score. I'm a student who takes reading prior to the change. So remember the change, they couldn't implement that until March 20th, I think, was the effective date on removing the writing from the 9th and 10th grade SAGE ELA. That was done under board request. The change was made. And anyway, so that's another way that I'll get an overall ELA score. Once the change is made in the spring, so let's say I'm a student who doesn't take any 9th or 10th grade ELA until the spring window opens, all I'm going to take is the reading, I'll still get an overall ELA score. If the ELA wants an overall ELA score to be based on both reading and writing, then you'd need to complete both of those prior to the window. So that was positive news for us and hopefully helpful in the field. So the other thing I wanted to do is identify some key items. If I've looked through the slides, we have a lot of information, and sometimes it'd be hard to know exactly what to attend to. And even though it's all important, this is my personal list of things that I think really you need to make sure you attend to. This first one is the February 15th AD meeting. We're going to have a time change on that. And this is based on 2 things. We're going to have our APAC meeting that same afternoon, which is a little different than we've done in the past. So we have to bring in the Center for Assessment for that. And the survey we sent out, many of you asked to get additional training on how to use local assessments to determine a measure of growth. And the Center for Assessment is going to provide training on that. So we'll begin at 8:30. We'll hope for a good drive day, no storm. And then the last hour of that meeting, those of you who don't want to participate in that with, training with the Center for Assessment, you could leave. And those who want to stay, that center will be there to provide more training on using your locally developed assessments. Okay? We'll send out reminder information about that, but make a change to your calendar today if you can. All right. Again, we talked about this. This is something important to make sure that people in your schools know. Continue to use the DLM for alternate assessment. Will it be online? Will the DLM be online? I assume that's the question. Or will the AD meeting be online? So a question came in about will it be online? Will you, whoever submitted that, provide some clarification? AD meeting. Yes, we'll continue to provide that through webinar. And I would assume we can provide the training that will follow up on webinar as well. Okay. So the question is, what's the process to switch it to the new window? I'm not sure I understand the question exactly, so I'm going to answer it the way I'm interpreting it. There's not a formal process to switch. When you deliver the assessment, the previous slide that we showed, just know those are the conditions. You get to decide at the LAA level whether you're going to administer after the spring window, just the reading, or whether you're going to deliver one of those tests, or both of them before the window on March 20th, or whether you're going to split those. The state board, when they made the change, they expected that we would only deliver the reading assessment. So that would be consistent with their will when they amended the contract. But AR wasn't able to accommodate that in the time frame that they gave us. And that's why we have these 2 windows with the complicated view of how do I get an overall score. But LEAs will decide that basically with how they administer. The previous slide, though, just use it as a reference point for the rule that would apply based on your schedule of how you're going to administer that assessment. There's a communications chart for assessment accountability that we're going to come across here a little later this morning. That's something that was requested by several ADs. That's something you can print out. It will answer the question when you have a problem, trying to decide who to contact, whether it's a NAEP problem, a KEEP problem, some other question that you have. It'll direct you to who you should call, and it'll give you their direct line phone number. So I think that's something important to attend to as well. Emily, just got two things going on. You're going to come to some slides that are going to talk about the SEED Extended Core revision and feedback meetings that are scheduled throughout the state. I would attend to those, even though this affects a small population of our students. I'd make sure I attend to the one that's closest to my region and inform my stakeholders about those. Okay. The KEEP scoring proctor requirements that was in the quiz, and we're going to provide more detail about that, including how much of the KEEP can be delivered to the whole class and how much of it needs to be delivered individually. The January 12th deadline for ACT, that's also, Rebecca, you keep me online here, that's also the deadline if you're going to select online delivery for ACT. I saw an email from an assessment director. Because writing is part of the ACT, this particular district has made the decision. They originally were going to deliver the ACT through paper pencil to make it more convenient for proctoring. As they considered delivering the writing component, they've made a decision to change and deliver that electronically since their students are most familiar with submitting writing digitally. If you're an LEA who wants to do that, make sure that you pay attention to that January 12th deadline. And if you haven't had conversations about how to deliver the writing in your LEA, that'll be something to talk to your curriculum folks about as well. Okay, I'm going to turn the time over to Jared to take us to our next section. Again, I want to thank you, those of you who are able to participate with us today, and wish you a Merry Christmas.
Okay, we'll talk about some of the test administration. Most of these are just reminders to help you keep these, I guess, in your mind as we go to the holidays. So reminder on when the SAGE systems are available. You can see the chart there. I've also, as we send this PowerPoint out, you'll have a link to the test schedule if you need to find that. So everything's offline until January 3rd. Then everything comes back online, and then you'll notice that the interim assessments are not available during the spring testing window, but the benchmark and summatives are. Go ahead. Another reminder, we have the training that you answered the question to in the Kahoot on January 11th. Emily, if you'll click a couple, I had some animations there in the. I just wanted to point out two main things. Well, actually three. One is this is in person, and we're sorry to those that wanted a webinar. It's difficult for us to do that in an all-day setting and to be able to provide that. So we will, as the next part says, we can provide a copy of what we're presenting, any activities we do, we can provide that for those that do attend as a backup if they want to use it, and also those that aren't able to attend. We will also at the following, so the AD meeting for January, we will provide us updates only for SAGE in that AD meeting. So you'll be able to see that as well. Go ahead and click. Again, a bit of a reminder, but we did update the testing ethics training presentation, so there's a new PowerPoint in there. And so I just listed where that can be found. It's now posted, and I just wanted to share a reminder that those of you that have already done training, we're not requiring you to redo all the training. This is more for your benefit to help your teachers, maybe remind them. But you don't have to go through an official training again. This is just to keep in mind as we go through this year. Go ahead and switch to the next one. So the next three slides, from what Darren passed along, you wanted some kind of an org chart of being able to know who to contact with which problem or concern. So you have the assessment and accountability section. Sorry, it's a little small there. I tried to get everyone on there with their email and phone number, and then kind of what they oversee.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back. So the next three slides, one is assessment and accountability, the next is data and statistics, and then the next one is data privacy. If you could just go back one slide, though. So on this one, Darren shared that some of you, at least the assessment directors, kind of wanted to know what data and statistics oversaw or their responsibilities and who they might contact. In talking with data and statistics, it was a little tricky because they're usually supporting assessment and other parts of USBE and not so much in charge of, except if it relates directly to data. So I was having a hard time trying to link exact responsibilities. They kind of, especially those on the left, the research consultants. So you could contact them and they could direct you to exactly who would oversee that as far as the data. They may also refer you back to assessment and accountability section. For example, you know, someone might be helping, Randy Raphael has been helping Anne Michelle with WIDA and Access 2.0. And so if you call Randy and have a question about WIDA, he's going to refer you back to Anne Michelle. Unless it's specifically you're looking for some data somewhere and how to get there. And Emily, if you want to just go through. And then you have the data privacy. Who you might contact as that's becoming more and more important in what we do. And that is all. Are there any questions? All right. I'm done. I think it was Anne Michelle that's next.
Good morning. Okay. So I understand how difficult it is to remember to mute yourself and keep track of those things, but it is really challenging to manage on our end. I know from experience, so thank you for cooperating and for responsibly using your mute button. Okay, so I'm going to just give a few quick updates about WIDA as we approach the testing window for WIDA access. There is a materials delivery change. There are reasons due to this, but I think it actually works to our advantage. Previously, the materials were scheduled for delivery on January 2nd, and I am not confident that all of our LEAs will be back in session at that time, so this change is advantageous. There's going to be a rolling shipment for our state, and materials will be delivered between January 4th, and they are guaranteeing delivery of all materials by January 8th. Our testing window opens on January 8th and goes through March 9th. So just a note about additional materials ordering. As we've communicated, or I usually hope so, WIDA has been playing over the last few years about how many extra materials to send. In the initial year, or in the initial year for online, they sent way too many extra materials. In last year, they sent not enough. So this year, they've landed on a 2-to-1 ratio of extra materials. So for every 2 students in a grade level that you have registered to take online, they're going to send 1 extra paper test, 1 extra paper piece for that student. So, for example, these materials are writing booklets for grades 1 through 3, things like test administration manuals, the paper components that go with the online test. You can order extra materials if you need them. That window for additional materials ordering opens on January 8th. But first, WIDA is asking that you check and share materials across your district with the other overages sent to a school. So as an LEA, you should look at where you have extra materials. If one school's short, see if another school has more, and you can borrow and share. That is totally fine. make sure to communicate this to schools before they order more. There are documentation procedures, and there's documentation and procedures for ordering extra materials. These can be found in the District Test Coordinator's Manual, starting on page 50. There's a link here as well as the URL. Additional materials can only be ordered this year at the district level. You have to place a district order for additional materials. Schools cannot independently order their own materials. So it may require some management at the district level to oversee sharing of materials, or if an additional order needs to be placed, they're asking that you place one order for the district and not for each school independently. Are there any questions about that? Again, I would refer you to the District Testing Coordinator's Manual, where that's very thoroughly explained. Heather.
Okay, mine is really quick. I'm just here to deliver some information and update on a few different things. First, as far as our Amplify users, the default right now for only days is the benchmark, since the benchmark opened on December 1st. So there is a pop-up that looks very similar to this. When you log into Days, or when a teacher logs into Days to Progress Monitor, they actually have to click Agree so that they are agreeing to the fact that they know they're in benchmark. So they will need to, if they want to progress monitor at the beginning of January, before they actually do the benchmark for Days, they will need to manually change that piece. And then in our technical manual, I'll go grab it in a minute, there's a Q&A page about invalidation. And this comes straight from that technical manual. If my class accidentally tested on benchmark assessment for Days rather than progress monitoring, can I invalidate my class assessment? And the answer is no. As stated in the USD's testing ethics policy, the assessor must ensure students are logged into the correct test. So once that's done within the window, that's considered a valid assessment. So that Days will keep. So we just wanted to stress the point to make sure that you know whether you're in benchmark or whether you're in progress monitoring to ensure that you're testing when you want to. If for some reason you do find that you feel like an invalidation is necessary in any of the DIBELS assessment tests, contact Sarah Wibke, and she will be able to determine whether or not that reason is viable. There was a situation, I believe, last year where we actually had a light fixture fall on a student's head during the assessment. That one was a good reason for invalidation. So if you have a reason and you want to run it by her, that's the process. You need to make sure that she sees it first and sees the reason why it might need to take place, and then she'll make that decision. You can go ahead and flip to the next slide. I'm going to hurry and grab this technical manual real fast. Sorry, I forgot to bring it up. Okay, so we don't have any more hard copies of these. This is what it looks like. It is an attachment with today's slides. And this has everything you need to know, any question you might ever have regarding DIBELS, the board rule regarding it, the legislation, and so on and so forth. So if you have any questions during this window and you need answers, look to your digital copy of this. The table of contents really lays out where you might find your answer. And as soon as we are able to get our hands on more hard copies, then we will bring them to an AD meeting and get those passed out to you. So just know you have that in case you need it. If you don't find your answer there, then please contact me. Yes. This was written by our teaching and learning department, so all the LDs have it. Yeah, it was given out in September. Okay, you can go ahead and click. As far as KEEP, the exit window, we've had a lot of questions about that. It's the last 4 weeks of the school year. That's when that will take place. And who can proctor? Licensed educators. Who can score the results? The same licensed educator. So we've had some LEAs ask if they can have like a team score those items as opposed to the teacher. And we feel like the observation piece of that licensed educator that did that assessment really helps speak to how to score it. So if that piece is removed, it will make the test less reliable. So at this time, that policy is that the same licensed educator that proctored the assessment be the one that score it. But when it comes to recording the data, aides can help with that. So once it's been scored, having someone enter that information into Data Gateway can be the job of an aide. Yeah. Question? No, you can have access to Data Gateway without a Cactus ID to an account. So know that you will have access. We can help you get that set up. So just let me know, and I'll get you in contact with who you need to ensure that you have an account to do that. But your licensed educator, as far as like your kindergarten teacher, should have a Cactus ID, and she should be able to input those very easily. As far as what the exit administration format looks like, it is mostly individual questioning. All of the math items are on an individual basis. The only two items right now that are able to be done in a small group are the two writing prompts that are included in that assessment. We have not field tested yet, but we want to. That's our next goal, is to be able to get into schools and field test this with middle of the year kindergartners to sort of get a range of how long this will take to do this assessment, and then we will have more information regarding how that goes and any tweaks to the assessment that we find are needed once we've had that experience with actual students to speak to that point. So know that that will be occurring. Yes. At this time, only licensed educators can. So the licensed educator has to be the one that administers the assessment. Yes. As of right now, okay, as of right now, we are able to, we're speaking about how to give the assessment, and there's been several conversations about how, with kindergartners, it would make sense to break it up, sort of as far as when you're running like a individual assessment situation, you might go through an entire area of the assessment and just assess students on that one area, and then be able to come back and do other content-specific areas at a later time. We will have a very set rule on that, but it's leaning in that direction as of right now. But it obviously will have to be done in different components because the small group item will have to be done at different times the individuals are. So know that that's probably going to be the format, is that teachers don't need to do this as a one and done, that it's going to be something they can compartmentalize and break up over that 4 weeks. One more thing as far as KEEP is concerned is we had some questions regarding those updated cut scores and how 1 and 9 changed. Yes, yes. Yes. They will be able to save progress online through Data Gateway. So we're working on being able to input some of the scores, save it, come back to that same student, and be able to input more scores for that same student so that pieces of the assessment can be done over time. So know that that's also in progress. As far as those cut scores with 1 and 9 changing, we will be updating those on Data Gateway but we don't know exactly when that will happen. We've had some LEAs ask if they can have access to that batch data so that they can disaggregate it the way they would want within their district and sort of analyze it in various components. We are working on a way to be able to do that, possibly like a Move It file, moving it through Move It with a CSV file. So know that we're working on that piece as well. Again, we will be updating that. It just may not happen soon. Yes. Through Data Gateway, we will make all those changes. We just had some LEAs that were doing different various things within their own district with that data, and so they wanted access to that data to be able to organize it the way they would like. And that is all. If you have any questions regarding Dibble's Keep or ELA Stage 3 through 5th, 6th-ish, I'm your girl. Thanks. Yes. And Keep alternate, all of those things, it's the same process, and we'll be working on that as well. Yeah, like it's the same window and the same development. And I've had some questions come up about the Keep alternate, about it being different than the exit, and it's not. It's the same rubric from beginning of year, or the entrance to exit. The rubric is the same, so they'll just mark they're looking for progress across that rubric. And then it'll go in Data Gateway as well. Okay. And then the Dibbles alt is the same window. That's do the same. You'll mark in your SIS system the same as you do your regular Dibbles kids, an AY or an A now. So as far as the difference between the entrance and the exit, the entrance was aligned to the preschool standards because it was taken at the beginning of the year, and the exit is aligned to the kindergarten standards, obviously. So as far as what that grading looks like within the alternate, that will change because the standards have changed, but the process will look the exact same. Okay, so Emily added this with some greater detail and information in an AD memo that I saw that went out this morning, right? Okay, so I don't know if you are aware, not aware, we have formed a work group and spent the summer working on creating some new alternate science standards that align to our new core SEED standards for grades 6 through 8. And we are proud to announce that we have a draft version of those standards for our students with significant cognitive disabilities available for review. So I just wanted to let you guys know that we're going to have those out for a 45-day review period. So that'll end January 30th, and then we are going to bring our work group back together, look at any revisions from the stakeholder feedback, if we need to rewrite any, remove any, and then we're hoping, let me go to the next one, we're hoping to hopefully get those to the board in March to get adopted as our new alternate science standards in grade 6 through 8 for our students with significant cognitive disabilities. So just a little background on who we had involved in that work group. We brought in special educators for those students with significant cognitive disabilities. We brought in general education teachers. We really sought after those that helped draft the original Gen Ed standards, SEED standards. So we worked with Scott Ross Kelly and Ricky Scott to bring those teachers together because they had that really good basis of the content and what the intent of those Gen Ed standards are to really help our special educators break down those standards and reduce that complexity. So it was a 3-day workshop, and they busted their behinds in getting these new standards written. So we're really excited about that. So the way they're outlined, so they have a similar format to the SEED standards. We kept those 3 dimensions within our extended standards. We also included a big idea so that teachers can have a little bit more of a basic concept of what the big idea of that standard is. And then the work group decided that within the standards, this is the first time we will actually have access points written into those standards for teachers to work off of for instruction, which is really awesome. So we took that that kind of core content, and we really broke it into those 4 access points all the way down to that really basic level of what that standard is getting at. So there's an example of what it looks like. So when teachers will get these standards and they're working with them in the classroom, they'll see the Gen Ed standard, right? They'll see the extended seed standard, the big idea, and then those access points broken down to really help with that instructional component. So we are gathering stakeholder feedback. So just so you are aware, we've sent this out to you guys. We presented last week to our special education directors. It's gone out to our UC panel, Special Education Advisory Panel. We sent it to the Utah Parent Center, to PTA, the Utah Developmental Disabilities Council, LEA directors. So all kinds of different people have gotten this survey, and we're really hoping that that this gets passed to teachers and parents and that we get some good feedback from them. So we have scheduled, so one of the things the board had wanted was some in-person stakeholder feedback. So we do have one today if anybody is interested in coming down. We've got one January 9th in Carbon District, January 11th in Cache, and then I will be in Cedar City, and we'll do one down there backed up to a DLM training. And then we'll have another in-person stakeholder feedback meeting on January 19th here at USPE. So if anybody's interested or you have teachers or parents you want to pass the information along to, so they can come out and voice their opinion on these new standards, we would love to see them. And so we broke down, so it's an online survey to give feedback. And in that survey, we actually included the Gen Ed standard, the big idea. So it's all pretty much there in the survey. And then we've given the option to keep as is, revise. If you're revising, we ask that you give us a suggestion so that we know where to go with it, and then removing and a comment box. So that's how it's broken down, and we did it into grade levels. So there's a 6th grade survey, 7th grade, and 8th grade, so that if you've got a teacher that maybe just does teach 6th grade, or you've got a parent that just has a 6th grader, they can do it by grade level. It should take about 20 to 30 minutes to complete each grade level survey. So a little bit of time, but not a lot, to go through these standards. And there's the links for you, which was also in the AD memo. So please pass this along and share it with teachers and get it out to your communities. And is that it? Is there one more? So there's more information. We also have the links on the special education homepage, right when you go to the special ed department. It's right there at the bottom. And then we provided in here some links where you can find out more information on the Gen Ed Seed standards, and then Tanya and I contacts if anybody has questions or concerns. So we're really excited, so please pass it along to your teachers and let us know what they think.
Okay, with our vast crowds of people that we have here, and those of you online, we're going to go through and do our riveting ACT discussion. And because we have to, and because I want to, we have some embedded music in that tune that happens to be related to Christmas, winter stuff, and very loosely related to the things that we're talking about. These are kind of a stretch, like a really big creative stretch. So for everybody online and for those of us here, if you can get the stretch, you get like extra bonus points for the honor of being the one who got the reference. That's creativity points. However, we've discovered that trying to embed the songs within the PowerPoint itself makes the files really, really large. And from last time, we discovered it didn't work very well. So I'll play music from up here and turn my volume up. And I'll just put the microphone down by my computer for everybody that's online. So we'll just start. So try to get these pulled up. there, ready to go and get my volume not muted. Okay. So we'll just start. Here's what we're going to talk about as far as ACT. So dates, things that you should have done, things that are coming up that you'll need to be aware of. Information about how writing affects the composite score for ACT. So there have been some questions about that we'll go over. A little bit of information just building on what Darren talked about the FERPA requirements and privacy and what we're going to do to meet those things, and upcoming training. So here we go with what should I already have done. So by now, there's a number of things that you should already have done to get ready for the ACT. When you go to Utah's ACT website, there's a menu of 7 different things. And if you click on those menus, it will give you links to all kinds of really useful tools. So by now, you should have completed everything that is on menu 1 and menu 2. If you haven't done that yet, go to those 2 things and go through the items that are on there. So basically, that's managing your school participation and applying for accommodations for students, which includes both students with disabilities and students who are English language learners. So those things are on there. Also preparing for your site readiness, taking a look at what the technical requirements are if you're doing online testing. Those things are included in there as well. So the titles of those 2 are the orientation. That's the first tab, and the second one is the configuration tab. That's also where you find the Pearson Access Next user guide, which is a really handy book. It tells you, it's a little thing, you can download it and just save it on your desktop. It tells you how to go in and do anything that requires data input from you. So managing your school participation, changing student information, changing student testing modes, all of that information is in the Pearson Access Next user guide. You should also, by this point, have planned your testing date information, looked at what kinds of changes have there been to testing manuals from this year to last year, or from last year to this year. There's a document that is on the ACT site that actually has those changes outlined on there, and you can find that just on the ACT website. Plan your test proctor training. So when are you going to actually train the people who are going to be administering this test? It's going to come up a lot more quickly than you realize, especially because after winter break is over, it's January, and things move fast. So having those proctor trainings planned is important. And then the last end you should have is you should have already had your accommodations applications put into the system, if possible. If you don't have those done, I highly suggest that you get them completed because the deadline for getting those done is January 12th. It takes ACT a minimum of about a week to 2 weeks to turn around on those reviews. And so after you get all of your documentation in, they need to review it all, and then they'll send back the decision on what ACT-approved accommodations have been allowed for those students. And if they need more documentation and information, then you have a limited window. You only have, you have till the 26th of January to get any resubmissions in. So if you wait till January 12th, and you need to collect more supporting information, and you need to get it turned in and turned around by January 26th, you've got a really limited time to be able to do that. So please try and get that done as early as possible. But know that the 12th is the deadline for the original submission, and 26th is the deadline for any resubmissions of supporting documentation. Okay, before we continue, we have our first song. So here is Name That Tune, #1. And staff people, do you want to play? Except for Anne Michelle, she can't play. And I should tell you why. Those of you who don't know, Anne Michelle is a DJ. Just so you know. And she's actually kind of a famous DJ. That's a big deal. So just so you know. It's kind of cool. It's like an alter ego thing. Okay. Who's got it? Close. Oh, you couldn't hear it online. Okay, we'll try it again. Let's see where my speaker is on my computer. I don't even know. Is it on the side? It is Trans-Siberian Orchestra. What song? Not Dec2017. It is? Nope, not Christmas in Sarajevo. Anybody online? Anybody else? No, not God Rest His Merry Gentlemen. We'll keep going. Anybody else? Carol of the Bells. It is Carol of the Bells. Okay, so the next question is, how does Carol of the Bells, here's the stretch, relate back to deadlines and ACT? Think about high school passing periods. This is the connection, sort of. What happens if you need to hurry and get somewhere and there's a bell? And the bell signifies you're late. That's the connection. Yes, I told you it was a stretch. Okay, so coming up next, things that you need to do next are steps from pull-down menus 3 and 4. So if you go to the ACT website, these are the items that you need to be preparing. So if you're doing online testing, there are some specific requirements that you need to be going through. Also getting your student files ready. Go to the next one. So online testing, there are some technical requirements that need to be met. Specifically, there's quicker, or do you want me to do it? Okay, so you need to have loaded the TestNav proctoring software. You need to have run a simulated testing situation, and that needs to have been done successfully. If it's not done successfully prior to January 12th, ACT will automatically default you back to paper testing. So, you have a question on that? I know that this microphone doesn't sound loud in here, but
earlier Karen had said, or somebody had said something about there was still possibly time to change your mind about the writing, so it would really need to be done. I thought the same date was the 12th, but you would need to have all this done also by the 12th, right? If you were even thinking of going that way.
yeah, so if you would like to consider doing online testing, just be aware that everything that goes along with online testing needs to be done by the 12th as well. So if you're considering that, also in the meantime, this preparation needs to be going on to make sure that you actually have the capacity to do that testing. And you can find all of the requirements for what is needed in the technical manual that's linked on the website as well. So the question is, how do you do the mock test? If you go to that technical manual, it will step you through how to do that. But basically, you're downloading the test proctoring software, then you'll get fake test students from ACT, and then you'll run through the test software just to make sure that everything, all the information can be downloaded and then uploaded successfully. So the next thing is to verify your student information. So as of yesterday, everybody in the state of Utah has all of our schools managed successfully. We're one of the first contracts for ACT to have that done. So way to go, Utah. We are the best. We know that. But our next step is to manage our student enrollment. So you should all have received a letter from ACT on Tuesday that went through it, and it just said, hey, it's time to manage your student information. That means you need to go in to the same area on Pearson Access Next, but instead of managing your organization, you're going to manage students. And the information on how to do that is also in the Pearson Access Next user guide, starting on page 11. And if you go through there, it will step you through step by step for what you need to do to be able to manage your students. And at that point, you can decide, do we want to do mixed mode testing? You know, are there some, maybe we want to have one class where we're going to trial run online testing. So at that point, you would choose, okay, we're going to have this student and that student and that student. You know, these 20 students are going to test using online testing. And you would select who those students are, and you would change that testing information from paper to online. But you would do that through the Pearson Access Next site to be able to manage that. And that question online.
If we originally said we wanted paper pencil administration, how do we change to online administration?
The question for changing to online, there's two ways you can do this. So if you want to change an entire district or a large number of students, the easiest way to do this, if you haven't managed your student participation yet, so let's say you have 3,000 students or something you need to change, or 5,000 students, would be to email me or Emily Berry, and then we can upload the code that says, hey, these several thousand students will all be testing online. If you're not doing several thousand students, then you'll manage it manually through Pearson Access Next. The instructions that are in the user guide actually will tell you how to make that change and to make that request. If you go in to that starting on page 11, it will tell you how to do that. And if you get stuck from there, you can actually call the Pearson Access, or excuse me, the ACT Help Desk number that is on the ACT Utah website, or it's in the AD memos that I send out. And then they can help you to be able to do that. They'll actually step you through step by step to be able to make those changes. If you have a very large batch file, we can help you to do that on a very large batch. But just know that if we do that as a batch, it will come as a very large batch. So those are the trade-offs. The recommended way, though, that ACT recommends is that you manage that manually through Pearson Access Next. Any other questions on that? Okay. The next item will be managing your online testing. If you're doing online testing, you'll need to actually go in and set up the test dates that you're using because you have a window. So online testing has Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays within the testing window, where paper testing has specific dates. So those are already selected for you. Online testing you'll need to set up in the testing, and that will begin on January 29th, where you'll need to start setting that up. And you can find all the information for how to do the creating testing sessions, all that information, in the online testing technical manual. And that is also on, I believe it's under pull-down menu, I think that one's under pull-down menu 4, either 3 or 4. I can't remember which one off the top of my head. But you'll be able to find the link to that, and then you can find those instructions in there. Okay, next one, ACT scoring. So this was the question that people had about multitasking, typing what I am saying, not what my password actually is. Okay. With ACT scoring, you have the question, well, does writing affect the composite? Emily, you want to go ahead and click? You have the part that people are pretty familiar with, the 4 regular components, and then those 4 components, 2 years ago, they started what was called a STEM score. And the STEM score is a combination of math and science scores. And then you have all of your subject scores. And those, the subject scores lead to your composite score. Then, as of this year for us, we are adding ACT writing. And writing has you'll get 5 scores for writing. Those 5 scores are an overall writing score, and then 4 subject area scores within the writing. Those 4 areas are the ideas and analysis, development and support, organization, language use, and convention. And those are the titles of each of the rubric headings that they use. So what writing does is it provides an English language arts score. Without writing, you get the English score and the reading score, but you don't get English language arts. So the ELA score, one more time, is something this ELA gives us a nationally comparable measure. So you have a standardized score, a way to evaluate college-level writing skills for students in high school to see are their writing skills predictive? No, let me back up. Are students writing at a level that we would expect them to be writing at in order to be successful in a beginning level college writing class, which is also like what ACT Math and ACT Science and other things, they predict how likely is it that the student would pass with a C or better in an entry-level college-level course. So ACT writing is looking at the writing skills, college-level writing skills of the student. But the question of does it impact their composite score, it doesn't. ACT writing is not figured into that. It is separate than the composite score. So we have song number 2 here. Song number 2, actually no, just kidding, it's not yet. So let's continue. No, it is. Yeah. Okay, so this has to do with testing information and thinking about, so I'll just leave it at that. So think about students with this song. Here we go, here's the song. Song. Let us know, okay, what's the thematic connection that may have to do with 4 areas of the test and writing and that particular song with that phrase, let it snow. And she's okay, online, way to go. Does she have a thematic connection for us? Lori, online, do you have a thematic connection for Let It Snow? And students that are looking at a testing day. Snow day! So the thematic connection is that students are hoping for a snow day. Okay. Yes, they are. They are hoping. So that's. If there is a snow day, we have there are days, makeup days that are built in. So the kids actually don't get out of anything. They think they do. They don't. Okay. So FERPA. Originally we were concerned that there would be a lot of effort that might be required to meet the requirements of Utah's FERPA for those 2 questions. And what we found out after a lot of consulting and discussion is that actually we have a fairly easy solution. Go ahead. And we get to hit the easy button, which doesn't happen very often. So the easy button means that there's supplemental instructions. And this is what Darren was talking about earlier. Those supplemental instructions say, student, skip questions 59 and 62 in your student information booklet, so in that survey. And those instructions did not get, the approval for that didn't get sent to ACT in enough time for them to print that in the instruction manual. So they are being emailed, and they'll be emailed out to all of the testing coordinators. So the job of testing coordinators will be to make sure, and assessment directors, will be to make sure that all of the test proctors have that supplemental instruction piece, and they know to tell their students, skip question 59 and 62. And then for online students, so students who are completing that information, a lot of those students they have the opportunity to complete the pre-information up to 4 days before or 4 days after the ACT. That information will be emailed along with their other instructional information. So it'll just be another little blurb that says, skip questions 59 and 62. Okay. We have a song. This was this one. This was my favorite connection one out of the entire thing. Still a stretch, but I had fun with this one. Okay, here we go. Okay. Who got that song? Anyone? Grandma got run over by a reindeer. Hey, what's the connection to FERPA? Okay, tragedies related to testing, that's a good one. It's not the one I thought of. Has to do with protected information. Anybody online? So I'll wait for like 5 seconds or less, because this one was fun. So it has to do with releasing protected information to the public. They're broadcasting that Grandma got run over by a reindeer and that she'd been drinking too much eggnog in public for anybody to know. They're releasing privately held information. So that was the connection. Okay. Let's continue. We have some trainings that are coming up. ACT is doing a training on the 18th of January. That one will be here, and it will be covering test administration information. So you're welcome to come for that. And then we've got trainings that we'll be doing. We did one round already of how to use core instruction for preparing students for the ACT. We'll be doing round 2 of that same training. So if you weren't able to come to the first one, you can come or send other people to round 2. That's on January 9th.
The question online is, my own students are taking the ACT at the same, or on the same day as my school, but at another school. I know I can't act as the TC that day nor handle tests, but can I handle, or can I hold a pre-admin session and organize everything beforehand?
So the question is, if their students, their personal children's students, are taking the test, can they handle information in a pre-admin situation? My initial inclination would be no. Darren, do you have any insight on that? That day. Okay. If that's what the manual says, then that would be the correct information. Yeah. That's one of those details I'd have to go back and actually look in the manual and read, because that's actually the first time anybody has asked me that question. So if she needs additional clarification on that, please email me, and then I can look up the additional detail on that. Yes. Yep. Okay. Good question, though. So trainings, we have the core instruction training, and for anybody who is newly administering the ACT this year. This could be test coordinators, ADs, anybody that you feel would benefit from coming and learning from what have other people done that made the test day work well. So this isn't an ACT, this is how you technically administer the test training. These are the helpful hints for making your day work well that we're going to be going over. And that's the one that's on January 10th, the smooth sailing training. And on this particular slide, this is my request for field expertise. So I have a little survey, and it's really quick. It's literally 2 prompts, and one of them is optional. So actually, it's 1. And what I would like is for you to share your wisdom. So for those of you who have been administering the ACT, and maybe you've only done it once, what is one thing that either you wish you would have known, or one thing that somebody shared with you that made your test administration day go a little bit more smoothly? And so this is some of the information that I hope to be able to share with people who are doing this the first time. So collective field wisdom, that's what I'm going for. There's the link to the survey, and this is also in the AD memo that went out. So if you don't get to it from here, you can get to it from the AD memo. But it will take you, about 2 minutes, maybe, unless you have vast stores of wisdom, and then I'd love that as well. But if you'll just take a minute, just share an idea of something that has worked well. And I have a song. Here's the song. This is the one that gets played over and over and over at the store and on the radio. Yeah, good job, Shar. All I want for Christmas is you. Okay, thematic tie. This one's a little more obvious. Anyone online? Has to do with the survey. I want your input. So, hey, last slide. Thank you. If you guys have questions, suggestions, please email me. I appreciate your input and the chance to be able to know what things people need help with, what questions people have. And we have one last song because this is the end. Anybody online? Okay, anybody in the room? This is very good. Okay, Lori got the tie for us. The theme has to do with winter break and the end of the meeting. So long. Enjoy your break. Yes, thank you. And Darren, do you want to say anything at the end? Okay. We got it. Nobody else after me, right? In the end. Any questions? You guys have any questions? No, any questions online? PowerPoint will be sent out. Okay. So yes, it will be sent out. And that's it. Okay. Go have an enjoyable winter break. Don't freeze outside if you're up in the north. If you're in the south and it's warm, we're all jealous. Oh, never mind, you got more snow. We're glad to be up here.